I don't believe that medical buildings are frankly that recession resilient, but I think that there's a common understanding that you continue to take care of the human body, whether life is good, bad, or indifferent financially with you, right? Because if you don't have your health, what do you have, right? And there obviously are, surgical and so obviously certain procedures that, regardless of whether or not financially this world looks stable, that have to be done, right? If you unfortunately have a stroke or a heart attack, or you have to go to the hospital, you're going to the hospital, right? It doesn't matter whether the stock market's down 500, points or not. You're going to get your heart fixed. So I think that the recession-proof or stabilization that many people talk about when they reference medical office properties stems from that thought process, in that you're always going to take care of your body regardless of what the financial markets look like. And so because of that, people believe that in good times or bad, patient bases are never really decreasing, and thus revenues for doctors are never increasing. One of the interesting things, though, that the pandemic taught us was that that's always not necessarily true, because yes, elective surgeries obviously were greatly affected by the pandemic. People couldn't just, walk into their doctor's office and decide to get something cosmetically changed by themselves, because there were just other pressing issues, and because of health CDC guidelines, you just couldn't do that, and that obviously affected revenues. But there were a lot of people, frankly, putting off non-elective surgeries because of the pandemic. And I think that, that's the one big thing that the pandemic taught me, was that, medical is not necessarily recession-proof. But maybe to frame it a little bit better, it's more recession-proof than, say, retail. And I think that, just again, the general thesis that, we as humans take care of, the human body, and we take care of ourselves before we take care of anything else, I think runs true. And I think that, that will never change. The one thing I would caution you on, though, is that there have been many, many practices and companies formed out of doing one very specific thing within the medical field, right? For instance, there are thousands of storefronts where you can walk in and get an MRI if you want, right? And they don't really do anything else, right? You go in there, you get an MRI, and you leave, right? You don't. They're not doing, wellness checkups on your health if you have, any sort of respiratory anything, right? They're not checking your limbs, your bones, your ears, your eyes, right? They're not doing anything. They're simply just giving you an MRI, right? So if all of a sudden, your MRI is kind of elective, and I kind of got a squeaky knee, I should probably go get that checked out, right? And all of a sudden, you as a patient put that off for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, or maybe you then forget about your squeaky knee and you never get the MRI, right? Those singular type businesses are going to struggle, especially in times where people are only spending money on the necessities. But I think that long term, medical will continue to get siloed like that, and that will become a much more specific. Certain professionals will do very specific things, and that, by the way, that's simply driven out of demand. It's driven by just the sheer volume of population growth, in the 60, to 80 age.